Welcome to the Tackle Your Feelings podcast with me, Dr. Hannah McCormack. Tackle Your Feelings is a positive mental well-being campaign brought to you by Rugby Players Ireland in partnership with Zurich Ireland and the Z Zurich Foundation. We want you to rethink how you might approach your own positive mental well-being. With our guests, we will cover a range of topics: confidence, mindsets, life experiences that shape and mould who they are. What makes them more than a player? And joining me on the couch today is Ryan Baird. Ryan plays lock for Leinster and Ireland, and you also were on the under-20 squad in 2019 that won the Six Nations Grand Slam. Is that right?
Memorable night.
But I read actually, because I had to Wikipedia it, not going to lie, that you only came on as a sub in the 2019 under-20 Six Nations. And now you're being selected for the Ireland senior team. So what changed between 2019 and now?
Well, in 2019, I can't really remember that far back, but I was coming back from a concussion. So I missed out on the first couple of games for the squad. And then I came back in, and the lads were doing so well that it was very natural that I just fill in from the bench, and we had a great team that year. It was one of the first. I can't remember if there was one more Grand Slam before that, but it was very big in the underage calendar for Irish teams to win the Grand Slam, like especially beating the French and the English, because they were the two big ones. And it was actually great because we played them at home that year. So we were down in Musgrave Park. That was the first time they brought them down there, the under-20 games, shifting from Energy to there, and it was incredible. The atmosphere was like, I think it's maybe an 8,000 stadium, and they sold it out. They had fire, kind of flames going up before the match,
pyrotechnics and stuff,
and it was sold out. It was, all the kids were there, the parents travelled down, like friends travelled down. It was incredible atmosphere. So that really kind of fueled it for us, and then we just kind of did the rest. We had a great, like, the amount of pros coming from that 20s group to now is so high that it's kind of, looking back, you're like, well, I'm not surprised we did well. We have so many great players.
You're almost getting close to having pretty much the under-20 squad being the senior squad.
Effectively, it'll probably get to that stage in the next couple of years. There'll be a load of players coming through, and you'll be like, oh, we all represent together. Like.
And obviously, like, so you play, and the way the setup in Ireland is kind of, you do get to know a lot of your teammates from a very young age, through the school system, through the underage system, academy, working your way up, under-20s and stuff. But to rewind a little bit, how did you first get into rugby? Like, why rugby?
I played a lot of sports when I was younger. Played tennis, played golf, played rugby, played GAA, swam, terrible at swimming. That was one of the things I'm not very good at.
And the length of it, you'd think you'd be...
I just couldn't the breathing part, I could never get right.
Yeah, that's always...
But my dad was being really big into rugby. He would have been a member of O Wesley down in Donnybrook, so I had a great connection with Donnybrook my whole life, and I would have started minis there when I was whatever the youngest age is, 4, 5, 6, not really sure. And he kind of just put that into me, and even my Montessori teacher said, and I have no recollection of this, but when I was a young lad, I'd be in the hall by myself throwing up an imaginary rugby ball at one end and sprinting to the other and catching it, which I thought was hilarious. And I only found that out a couple of years ago when she told my mum. So I kind of guess I wouldn't say I fell into it, but I was in high school first, which is a more kind of multi-sport school. It's they focus on hockey as well, and they're a good cross-country school. But then I moved to Michael's with my brothers, and that's like a very rugby kind of stereotypical dominant school. There is a lot going on underneath, but rugby is the kind of the main sport there. And they have a lot, and when I was arriving in, they had so many professionals who had already been there. So I kind of fell into it and went from like Leinster underage so Leinster kind of 17s to 18s to 19s. Then I got an academy contract. Then made my senior appearance. So I've always kind of just gone through, but I really enjoy it. So it's something that I'm really happy to have fallen into.
And because like some people think, you can imagine little Ryan. I think that's the cutest thing ever, just playing with the imaginary rugby ball. But like I said, you played loads of other sports. Because some people think, and there's always been a debate in sports science and stuff of early specialisation versus, trying to do as many sports as possible. Do you think playing all those other sports stood to you, even the ones that you weren't good at? Like, do you think you learned stuff from them that you've carried into rugby, or was it?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it probably depends on the sport. There is probably some sports where you need to specialise early, but for rugby, that's such a like a multifaceted game. There's so many different techniques you required and skill sets. Playing playing tennis gave me such good hand-eye coordination, aerial skills. I did athletics, that gave me my sprinting, and so I think it's so necessary. Like, it would be the one thing I advise parents is get your kids playing as many sports as possible, because I pick up so much from movement, everything.
But was rugby, would it have been your favourite, or do you think was it kind of when you went to Michael's that it kind of was like, no, this is more of a focus now, or what stage did that happen?
I don't know if it's ever my favourite. I kind of just like, I enjoyed playing with the lads.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I got better. And it was nice being good at it. I enjoyed the competitive aspect. The winning. I kind of love the process, especially today. I love the process of it all.
Yeah.
If you do this, and this, then the result comes out, and it's very rewarding. But I love golf. I love my fishing. I love, bringing my dog for a walk. I wouldn't say anything in my life's a favourite.
Okay.
Just if I'm happy doing this, great. Then the next thing I do, if I'm happy doing that, great. I just like to flow, like.
So it seems like you have a pretty relaxed attitude towards this, whereas again, there's that perception or maybe misconception that to be good at something, you have to be hyper focused. It has to be the only thing that you pay attention to. What would you say to that? Or
I'd say there's a degree of I'd say you have to be hyper focused. Like, I am very hyper focused with rugby.
Yeah.
When I decide to be, but you don't have to think about it all the time, every day.
Yeah.
Like, when I go into Leinster, yes, I'm incredibly hyper focused. I'm always, my eyes looking at everything, trying to analyse everything. And then when I look back on video in the evening, or if I'm preparing for preparing a package of some plays on Sunday evening, yes, I'll be incredibly focused. But then when I stop, I'm completely switch off.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be incredibly focused, and kind of Johnny was doing a kind of a talk there, presentation there yesterday. It's
Johnny Sexton.
Sexton, yeah, sorry. Yeah. And you need to be obsessed. He's specifically this season, because we want to win the double, because we were a very disappointing season last season. So he's like, you have to get obsessed over it all. So I completely agree with that, but you have to be able to switch off, because you can't remain up here the whole time, because you'll just run out of juice. So you need to go up, come back down, recharge, whatever that is for you, whatever you're out, going out with your friends or your activities, and then you go back up, and you go back down, you go back up, you go back down.
So you have to make space for other things in your life.
Oh, 100%, yeah, 100%.
And where did you learn that from? What age are you now? You're 23? I would say that is not something I knew at 23. That's not something that I was overly aware of. I enjoyed hanging out with friends, I enjoyed other stuff, but I wouldn't necessarily have said I need to make sure I carve this time into my day or into my week, which is something now that I am a lot more aware of.
Yeah.
And I'm a lot older than you. So how did you learn that? Where did that come from?
I don't know. I consider myself to have quite a high kind of awareness of myself and emotional intelligence. Like I'd kind of just like read people and myself quite well. Obviously, like we need people's opinions and feedback and stuff, but kind of just understand myself, or I'm getting to understand myself very well. I kind of say to some people, like 3 years ago, I wouldn't consider myself thinking. I don't think I would have thought kind of in a deeper way maybe 3 years ago, even 2 years ago. It's only now in the last couple of years where I'm starting to question things in my head and think, is this the best thing to be doing, or kind of just saying, why am I doing this, or could I be doing something else here? And I'm not over obsessing over it, but it's something I really kind of notice for myself, and I really enjoy the fact that I'm able to do this.
Yeah.
And kind of, because I understand, not like it's not every 23-year-old is going to be thinking like I am, but I don't know, maybe I always find actually when you're put into a high performance environment, like Leinster or Ireland, you are forced to adapt and grow quicker than I think you would be if you were just in college.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot more pressure on you. You're performing for your teammates, the fans. It's a business at the end of the day, so you need to win to be getting paid and keep the business afloat, etc. So there's a lot more it kind of forces you to grow up a lot faster.
Yeah.
Which is I enjoy.
Yeah. And like, so pretend I'm, well, actually, no, I was going to say you don't even need to pretend. Like, explain that to me as if I didn't appreciate that. And I turned around and said, but Ryan, surely, like, you have to be, like, it doesn't really matter what you think. It's what other people are telling you, or, you have to be hyper focused all the time, 24/7, 100% of the time. Like, what advice would you tell me? Like, how did you get into that space? Like, there's an awareness that you have, there's an emotional intelligence that you have. If someone wants to be more like that, how would you tell them, like, what kind of things would you say this can help you?
So a big thing I struggled with and still struggle with is because of my high emotional intelligence, I'd always be looking at people and I'd be seeing how their facial expressions are, how they're walking. Like I could tell you if someone put their shoes on now, I could tell you every person in the team has their shoes. I just see everything. It's just a weird thing. Yeah. So where that was my downfall was I'd always think something was being said about me when I saw coaches talking. I'd be like, okay, they're obviously they're talking about me here, or I'd be making assumptions. Or if someone said something to me, I'd take it really personally. So a book I read last year called The Four Agreements. I can't remember the author's name, sorry.
Sorry.
But it was like an Aztec kind of book from back. Basically, Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, and Tom Brady, quarterback for currently the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they both read this book. Yeah. And Aaron Rodgers was the first one I kind of read it, and he said it really transformed his life. So I looked it up. I saw the Four Agreements. Try your best, be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, and make no assumptions. So I read the book and I really liked it, especially the don't take it personally and don't make assumptions, because for me they were like just the two standout things to me. And I was seeing I'm seeing a psychiatrist, and we were kind of going, having conversations every month or so. And I brought this book to her and I told her, like, boom, these are the two things I've found it. And she was like, amazing. So I've had to reference back to that book, like, a couple months ago. I read those two chapters again, and I'll probably read them again in the next couple of weeks as a reminder, just to get it into my conscious that, if someone's annoyed at you, you can't take that personally. If they're not annoyed at you, they're annoyed because they didn't do something right it's never affecting you. Or if you're making an assumption, that's just completely it's made up, it's fabricated, like, so. No,
I totally agree, and I think it's something that can be a hard process to learn. And it's kind of like when someone's behavior is about them, it's not about you.
Yeah.
Unless you maliciously go out of your way
Yeah.
to really annoy someone or to really push their buttons, their behavior is usually down to something else that's going on, and how they perceive the world. And it's something that, like, I always try to think of, I don't know what's going on. Like today, we're chatting here today. I don't know what you've been up to today. I don't know what mood you have, like what experiences have brought you into this room today and what mood you might be in. But that's not necessarily an easy thing to learn. Would you say, like, and learn being the operative word there? Like, is it something you practice? You said you went back and read it again. Why? What happened?
I've probably found myself slipping back into taking things personally and making assumptions and stuff. I'd also find myself kind of not consistently, but I journal and kind of write down how my day went, or a big thing for me was selection, and that kind of threw me off a couple of times last season, where I'd come in on Monday morning and Leo would be like, "You're not playing," and that would affect my mood for the day, and my training wouldn't be as good as it should be. But even another time, the team wasn't picked on Monday, and he was like, "Oh, we're going to hold off till Tuesday or Wednesday to name the team." I'm just like, I remember I was coming back from my back injury and hoping to make the quarterfinals of the Heineken Cup. And the week before, I just got back trained awesome. And then the Monday, Tuesday, the team hadn't been announced yet, or the bench hadn't been announced yet. And that completely screwed my mind for training, and I was just an absolute mess. So I let his kind of opinion and some words affect me. And so then I really kind of went with the kind of like every Sunday now, or if it's coming up to a game, I'm like, doesn't matter what Leo says tomorrow, I'm going to train to be a better player today. Not worry about something that can happen on Sunday. Or on Saturday.
So I'm just going to rewind a little bit, and I want to talk to you about something, because I think it could be a really interesting perspective. Is that you went from high school into Michael's, and like you said, there's loads of like existing past students of Michael's who were, international players. You play lock for Ireland and Leinster now, which is a position that has been held by some of like the most revered rugby players in the country, including Leo. And I'm just really interested what that's like how do you deal with that kind of pressure in those situations? Or do you see it as pressure going into a school that is like really well known for producing high level athletes, specifically in the sport that you're playing, into a team where your coach is now someone who knows a lot about your position? And like I said, there's some really big names who've held that position on teams. Like, how do you manage that?
Being honest, it's something I never think about.
Okay, I'm like, have I put this in your head?
No, it's to me that's just unnecessary. Pressure that you're putting on yourself. Like the only person you need to, live up to or emulate is being try to be the best version of yourself. So I can't remember, someone asked, one of my old performance psychologist asked me what's your goal or something. I was like, I want to be the greatest rugby player ever. He was like, that's quite subjective. So someone has to tell you, yeah, you are the greatest rugby player. It's got to be voted in, and World Rugby's XV. And he was like, why don't you just try to be the greatest version of yourself? So that's what I try to do, and I don't really care who's come before me. I do care, like, you got to respect the tradition, but like in the sense of me trying to get better, that's the past. The present right now is me trying to be my best.
Yeah.
You know, and if I can leave, you know, leave a legacy or leave anything that people can also gain from, yeah, great. But right now it's best version of myself every day, and wherever that takes me, takes me.
So you just constantly, I remember used to go to the gym actually in DCU where I went to college, and I remember there was a quote and it was kind of like, the only competition is yourself. And I remember like the quote was way longer than that, and I remember I wrote it down somewhere, but that was like the line that kind of stuck out to me, that like you were saying, it's about being the best version of yourself. It's about kind of trying to be who you can be to the utmost. So it's really kind of interesting that you don't look at these things as kind of pressure situations or being, you know, trying to fill anyone else's boots. But on the flip side, do you have like any role models, or is there anyone you kind of look up to, whether, or who was it that you potentially looked up to when you were younger?
So when I was younger, I would have watched like my brothers. I played a lot of tennis. My brothers played a lot of tennis to a much higher level than I did. So I would have always watched tennis. So Rafael Nadal for me would have been my role model growing up. Mm-hmm. I just loved watching him play. He was exciting. You know, you could never count him out. You know, he'd dominate on clay. We had great battles with Roger on grass, and the way he kind of just, you know, was just dug in. We just as a family, we just really loved watching Rafa. You know, it was either Roger or Rafa, and we picked Rafa as a family. Like, you know, and now when I grew older, it's like I really appreciated Roger as a tennis player, but I hated Roger when I was younger because I wanted Rafa to win. Yeah. So he would have been my role model growing up. And then as I kind of started to kind of see American sports and stuff, and kind of watch documentaries, you know, if I'm in the, you know, today, for example, after training, I didn't get as much running in as I would have liked. And, you know, I think sometimes the easy thing to do is to just go home and, you know, I've done what I was required today. So, but I'd always say, what would Tom Brady do now? Mm-hmm. What would Kobe do now? What would, you know, the greats of other sports do? And you know, by watching those documentaries and seeing, you know, I was watching, there's a great one out on Netflix called The Redeem Team at the moment. Mm-hmm. The US basketball team, the Olympics in 2008, and Kobe was brought in to play in the 2008 one. And the lads went out, the rest of the team had a week's training. They went out on Friday night. They came in around 4:30, 5, mm-hmm. and who do they see at the lobby? It's Kobe in his gym gear, ready to go to the gym. You know, Kobe said he lived on 4 hours of sleep, and you know, so I take all that with a pinch of salt when I read and listen to it. But the mindset behind it, I think, is very true, and it's something like, you know, would always, you know, can I do this a little bit more here, a little bit more there, and you know, if I feel I haven't done enough, probably haven't done enough, so I'll be like, right, I can do some more. Yeah. So. Yeah, Tom Brady as well, you know, his mindset of winning and just ruthless preparation. You know, the best players don't just know what's going on, they understand why it's going on. Mm-hmm. And they know other people's roles. So if if you're like all quarterbacks in the NFL, they have to know what every single player is doing on the pitch, because you know, they're running it, and you can take that into lineouts as well, and mm-hmm. in rugby and on the pitch. You know, you want to understand why you're doing something, not just doing it for the sake of doing it. Because if you understand it, you know, there's so much permutations off that you can run off, and you can break down defence much easier. And that's how you become, you know, you evolve, and you see the pictures time and time again, and you start to understand, well, we could do this better, this better, this better. So mm-hmm. yeah.
And are there any people who you kind of lean on for, I suppose, whether it's support or inspiration, who like you play with now, or even outside of sport?
Yeah, I'd for support, the main thing would be to kind of, my mom would be number one. Mm-hmm. Just, you know, mother figure. She's just so supportive. And then my brother Cameron, who is 2 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. I'd speak to him a lot around my performances and stuff, and he'd really understand me really well, and he would tell me, that I'm doing this wrong, or you're doing this great, and you need to focus on this. And I'd listen to him like a lot of the time. So my first 3 games of the season, especially my second game against Ulster, I had a message that I got from him before, and I then wrote his name on my wrist before I went out to the match, and anytime I saw that, it reminded me of the message he said, and then I put that into action on the pitch, and I won the best 40 minutes I've ever played. So there'd be 2 people I'd lean on. I'd also lean on my friends hugely. I think having a friend to just kind of take your mind off rugby, to bring you back to earth, because sometimes you're playing in front of 20,000, 50,000, and it can be really cool, but then it's nice to go back to your mates and get slagged and have a bit of crack and just be normal again, because I don't really know, I wouldn't notice it too much, but like I can imagine the likes of Johnny, for example, if he like going back to his mates or his family, that he's just he's just Jono. And he just gets treated like, so it's nice just go back to your mates and
just being Ryan, as opposed to being Baird. Because that's what they call you on TV, right? And was that kind of consistent throughout school, like your kind of support and the people you hung out with, the people who you would have spent time with when you're at school? Is that the same now? Are they the same people, or have people kind of like come and gone? Or
so in high school, I never really had a good close friendship.
Okay.
So I was there for 3 years, and I never really kind of gelled properly with anybody. Then I moved to Michael's, and first year I was friends with a couple of lads, and it was more kind of my late years when it was 4th, 5th, and 6th year, more so when really because of rugby, because I was hanging out playing with them so often. They became my close friends, and then to this day now they'd be my best mates. And then a couple I've met along the way outside of Michael's as well would be so for the last couple of years I had some great mates that I really get on with, and it's just have great fun.
And was that hard in high school, not having the core of friends? Like what?
Yeah, it was very hard. It was very hard. My mum would always say that school finished at 3:55. I lived 2 minutes away from high school, so I'd be on my bike, and she'd always say I'd be literally on the couch watching TV at 4:05, 4 o'clock. Literally, the second school was over, locker closed, gone out. So yeah, it was tough. It was tough. But I guess it gives you an appreciation now when you have those friends that you want to keep those friends and being or just be grateful for them, because not everyone has that. And it's one thing my mom would always drill into me, like always be nice to people. And if you see someone by themselves or kind of not fitting in, go over and make them feel comfortable, bring them into whatever conversation you're having, because you were there once, so you don't want to be you know exactly what it feels like.
And I think it's a really interesting point, because you say that now, and there's a part of me that's looking at you going, I could never imagine you not being that kid, being like, racing home from school just to, whether it's to get away from it or just to be back in a comfortable position. So it just again goes to show you don't know what's going on in someone's life. You don't know, like someone can be, like you said, on their own, sitting in a corner just waiting for that conversation to happen. So like, what would you say to someone who is maybe in that situation now? Like, what would you, like, is there advice you could give, or what are things that you do? You said, which I think is really important, like really treasure the friendships that you have. Like, how do you kind of work on those relationships that you do have, the good relationships that you do have now?
Take an interest in, a relationship is two ways, you know. So genuinely caring for someone, really kind of wanting to check in on them, know how they are, not just like how's work going, but how they actually are.
Yeah.
You know, if they're struggling with anything, or you know, a couple of my friends would be playing team sports, so, you know, or in their jobs. You know, I have a couple of mates now over in London working, you know, 10, 12, 13-hour shifts sometimes, and I was just, you know, texting them the other day, checking in, saying how they were and how's the, like, that grind of, you know, like, I can't imagine working that many hours, you know what I mean? So just genuinely caring is huge, and for people who might not have that currently, like, you know, there's so many people out there like that at the moment. Don't feel you're by yourself or alone, and you know, you will always find people who are common to you. It might take, for me it took longer. Like I remember always, like, you know, it took me going up through school and stuff, and even in Leinster now, I find it takes me a little bit longer to kind of just, you know, to get closer friends. That's just sometimes the way it goes, you know what I mean? So don't feel like you're in a rush, and, you know, have good support around you. You know, you're always going to have, you know, someone to chat to. So, you know, don't feel like, oh, he's not someone else. You know, if he's a good guy and he really cares about you, or he's a good girl, she's a good girl and she cares about you, like, you know, care back.
Yeah.
You know?
I always say that. I think you said it earlier, like, relationships they have to be reciprocal.
Yeah.
Right. You have to take an interest in your friends' lives, in your family's lives, in your partner's lives, whatever. You can't just kind of assume that they're just going to stick around just for the sake of it. Like, it takes time and effort. But like, that's a pretty big lesson to learn from a young age. But would you say, like, it was the biggest lesson, or what would you say is your biggest life lesson that you can kind of go, that changed the way I operated, or that changed the way I think about things?
What I mentioned before, that I learned last year, like, not everything is about you. You're not the center of attention. You know, there's, you know, so many people who have problems going on who are also going to be, you know, discussing things with other people. So, like, that not taking things personally, not making assumptions, for me has been huge. And do you mind me asking, like, what resonated with you when you read that book and you saw those chapters? What was it that made you go, like, bingo, this is what I needed? It just made sense. Like, it was just like, when I was talking about the, you know, not taking things personally, and how that's just a reflection of someone else's thoughts at the moment, or the assumptions, like, you know, it's not true, so why would you even think it? Kind of just clicked with me, because that's something I've been struggling with so much. So seeing that in the book, and kind of seeing those two of those kind of great quarterbacks, great athletes of the NFL, both read it and both really kind of connect with it. Kind of, I was like, you know what, that really kind of, that works for me.
And now, knowing what you know, do you ever look back and kind of think, oh, I wish I had acted a different way in this situation? Or
no, because I think if I acted in a different way, I wouldn't be here now. So you know, I think everything, my mom always says, and I completely agree, everything happens for a reason. Like, you know, if it's a setback, it's giving you an opportunity to have the comeback. You know, if something's going well, it's, you know, it's going well, and just, you know, ride that wave. But, you know,
your mum sounds like a pretty smart lady.
She's incredible. Yeah.
But, like, so what would you say was potentially your biggest setback? That kind of, like, was there anything in life that, like, kind of, that you can look back on now and go, I'm really proud I got through that?
I'm probably still getting through it at the moment, but overthinking things, and and ruminating in my head about loads of issues and stuff, and, you know, getting out of the present, like. So being in the past or thinking about the future, that, you know, so I'm still learning. on that. And I'd say I'm only 5% the way there now, but I'm 5% better than I was previously, or you know what I mean. So as long as I can just continue improving, you know, there's no rush. Like I don't think you'll ever achieve, you know, 100%. Like you're always chasing it. You're always chasing it.
Yeah.
And that's when you get the greatest satisfaction.
Yeah. And what are the kind of things that you do to try to ground yourself back in the present? Because it is so easy, and it's almost like we're built to, well, some of us, me included, it's almost like we're built to ruminate on things, or to, you know, like I said, overthink and second guess, did I do the right thing in this situation? Or I'm sure you've had the same situation or same experience where you're like in the shower and you're like, I should have said that instead of this. You know what I mean? Or, oh, that was the perfect comeback. Or even like, even in conversations, sometimes I'll find myself being like, why didn't I ask this? Because that could have given me a better insight into what was going on in someone's life or whatever. But so how do you stop yourself from constantly looking over your shoulder?
Yeah, so it's actually literally in the last couple of days I was chatting with Declan Darcy, who's the new performance coach for Leinster, and I was telling him how I was thinking about when I was on the pitch against the Sharks in the last game there 2 weeks ago before I got sparked. But he basically kind of got from what I was saying that I was judging myself as I was playing. So he was like, can you not flip that to opportunity? So instead of, you know, seeing the negatives of it, see, oh, okay, I could do this better next time. So and what I was kind of writing this down yesterday on the Lewis at the 10, I was like, when I was writing down like kind of opportunity versus judgment, I was like, looking at opportunity, you can only look forward into what's next with opportunity. Opportunities are things that haven't come about yet. Yeah. So they can't be in the past. So you can't be in that space. And so for me, like, you know, now if I'm on the pitch, or, you know, if I make a mistake in training or I make a mistake in a match, I'm like, okay, what did I learn there? Okay, I need to not get as high on the ball, or I need to be a little bit more faster here. Next time, that's a great opportunity, let's do that. Or if I find myself tired in a match and I'm like looking at the clock like that, you know, I'm judging my fitness there. I'm judging, geez, oh fuck, do I really want to be here? Blah, blah. But instead, you can flip that to, okay, what do I need to do next here now on the pitch? You know, what do the lads need me to do next? Do I need to run here? And it just kind of brings you back to the moment. So I'm really looking forward to experimenting with that in the next couple of weeks in the autumn series. So and in training and stuff, because I think that'll be when we discuss that, I think that's a huge thing for me. So I'm really looking forward to putting that to the test. Yeah, and just kind of on that, like, I remember, I don't know where I heard it, and I don't know who said it first. I'm sure a lot of people obviously think the same way, but what I try to say to people is the only reason you should look back is to see how far you've come. So, like, it can be, you know, it's not about ignoring the past, because there's loads to learn from it, but trying to, like you said, look at things as opportunities. And sometimes reflecting gives you a great opportunity to just check in and be like, I'm actually really impressed with myself. I've managed to do this. Like, future Ryan might be able to come to look back on this conversation and be like, yeah, I've come a long way since having that chat with Hannah on the podcast or whatever. But you're wearing your Trinity t-shirt, repping your college, because you are a student in Trinity. And I remember I read a little article that was written about you. I read it today, but it was written a while ago, saying, and the headline was like, rugby is just one small part of you, or it's you're only going to experience it for a small time. So what are the other things that you've got going on in your life? You kind of mentioned fishing and golf, walking your dog, but what are the things, like, if you were to describe Ryan outside of rugby, who would he be? I'd be very inquisitive. You know, I'm very fortunate with the position I'm in, with the people I can meet, that are, and, you know, the time I have outside of work to research and to kind of looking things that I'm really interested in. So, you know, food's a huge passion of mine. So I'd love to have a business when I'm older. That's in relation to food, because I kind of just love the kind of thought of providing joy and joy and pleasure to other people through food. I think, you know, and I love having my mates over and, you know, smoking up some meat, or, you know, cooking a nice meal, and, you know, I love just, you know, that great pleasure of hosting it. So definitely want to see myself in that kind of space. You know, business wise, I'm, you know, thinking ahead of, you know, so I think you can take being a rugby player is two things. You can really kind of ride that, I'm a professional rugby player, I'm getting paid well for my age, and then you come out of your career and you're like, gosh, what am I going to do now? You know what I mean? I got my degree, but what else? So I'm taking the mindset, well, while I'm in here, I want to use as much time as I can to investigate so many different avenues, so that when I come out, whenever I finish, because it could be tomorrow, you know, it could be tomorrow, like when I finish that, I want to have a plan. And I want to be just straight into it. Because I think a lot of players, when they step out, sometimes they feel like they're a bit lost. I don't want to be lost.
So would you say that you always wanted to be a rugby player when you grew up? Was that because, like you kind of mentioned earlier, that you know, rugby was something you were good at, you kind of fell into, like, playing for your school, getting into the academy, playing the underage kind of stuff, and working your way up? Was rugby always it, or was there ever anything else you wanted to be? No,
I sport was always going to be. I could, like, you know, I think there's some people who are fortunate at a young age say, look, I know exactly what I'm going to be. And you see when they're older, they're actually doing it and they're loving it. But for me, that wasn't this case. But I kind of just loved sport, and the thought of, and still to this day, the thought of sitting at a desk 9 to 5 or 9 to 12, you know what I mean, and working, it just doesn't. To me, I'm just like, what compared to what I'm doing, I'm out there on the, you know, throwing a ball around in the gym, staying fit. You know, to me, it just seems so much better. And I'm just really enjoying it. So I don't know if it's something I said I want to be a rugby player, but I'm very good at it, and I love the freedom it gives you. And, you know, I always remember when I was going to rugby games, I love watching rugby. I love watching rugby, and I'd always close my eyes as the team's running out of the tunnel, and I kind of like close my eyes and I just visualize myself running out of the tunnel, and I get goosebumps every time. So I guess the thought of being able to play in front of, you know, thousands and thousands of people was such a cool spectacle. Like it's so, it's you cannot get that feeling in, you know, it's just some people say, oh, I get it doing, you can't, like having 80,000 people, or not 80,000, I haven't played 80,000 just yet, but playing in front of 50,000 people in the Aviva, that adrenaline you get, that feeling of, you know, representing your country, it's just standing there. I always love standing there at the anthems. You look up and you see just people going for it, and coming to watch you guys play. It's just, it's so special. So I think that was one of the things I was like, I really want to represent my country doing that, and my province, and just like be grateful for that. Like it's so cool.
And you make me want to be a rugby player when I grow up now. But I don't think that's going to happen. So final question then, and then we might do like a little quick fire round at the end. But if you could, thinking back to like little Ryan, you know, maybe he's about to go into St. Michael's, having left high school, knowing what you know now at 23, what piece of advice would you give him?
Probably the same piece of advice I give myself today, like, just keep trying to be your best. Enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, stop it. You know what I mean? You know, enjoyment is number one above everything.
Yeah.
If you ain't enjoying it, you can't put your heart and soul into it. So
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying it, stop. There is something out there that you will enjoy.
Yeah.
But just give it your best. I wouldn't change anything that I've done. Because I think that makes you who you are today.
Yeah.
And you learn from every experience, whether it be bad or good. But yeah, just give it your best.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great lesson, because I think people get caught up into, have you heard of the sunk cost fallacy?
No.
Or, yeah, sunk cost fallacy. It's the idea that when you've dedicated a lot of time to it, you should stay in it. But like you said, if you're not enjoying it, if it's not bringing some level of happiness into your life, then you really got it. It doesn't matter how long you've been at it. And that's relationships, that's a job, that's, well, you can't really leave school, but
Yeah.
you know,
One construct.
yeah. Or like, I mean, you know, college courses, things like that.
Yeah.
It's the idea that there's this false sense of obligation to stick at something because you've been at it for a while, when really and truly, if you're not happy, like I said,
That's number one.
There's something else that's going to be making you happy after.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've really enjoyed that chat, Ryan, I have to say.
That's great.
It was really interesting to get an insight into you. But before we finish up, I'm going to do a quick fire round. Now, I cheated because I sent you some of these questions earlier, but I've since added to them.
No worries, yeah. Worries.
So I'm going to ask you, maybe, we'll see how we go. I'll ask all of them.
Yeah, go.
And just,
yeah.
So this is like one word answers as quick as you can. Okay, staying in or going out?
Going out now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Now I'm like, I want to ask more about it, but I won't. Reading a book or watching a movie?
Not a movie, yeah.
Talk about it or think about it?
Talk about it.
Time alone or time with friends?
Friends.
Podcast or playlist?
Playlist.
Cooking for yourself or ordering a takeaway?
If I have time, cooking for myself, yeah.
What's your favourite takeaway?
No takeaways really give me the same satisfaction as either going out for an incredible meal to a great restaurant or cooking a really nice meal at home.
Yeah, that's fair.
I just don't think takeaways hit it for me, but I still like get them because you're in good spots you can find.
Yeah, for sure. Favourite childhood TV show?
Hawaii Five-0. Yeah, loved it.
It's like, that's before my time.
There was a remake of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was incredible. Loved it. Every Sunday, I think it was 8 p.m. It's the best.
Nickname you've been called and why?
Just Baird or Bairdo, because nothing behind it. Just I don't know. It kind of rings better than Baird. So yeah.
You've got brothers though, don't you?
Yeah.
How many brothers do you have?
2 brothers, 2 younger brothers. Yeah.
2 younger brothers. Do they get called the same?
Yeah, they got both called Bairdo as well.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of
almost a family nickname at this stage. And then what is your favourite food? You kind of mentioned talking about.
I love Italian just because of the
carbs.
the carbs, but Italian is like out of I think a lot of cuisines. It's such simple ingredients. It's just like you let the ingredients talk. So if you have tomatoes from the foot of Vesuvius, or you've buffalo mozzarella, or you've Parmesan from beautiful spots, and it's just like you're just letting the ingredients talk, and that's my favorite part about Italian food.
Yeah, you're making me want Italian now. What was your favorite subject in school?
Applied maths. Yeah,
Applied maths.
Got a great teacher, Mr. Jones.
Call you nerd anyway.
Yeah.
What's your hidden talent?
I'd be a pretty good cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, part of me doesn't believe you, so I'm gonna have to get you to like make me an Italian meal, and just so I can corroborate with that. But yeah, that's it.
Amazing.
Thanks so much for joining us today
and
being one of our first guests on the TOIF podcast. But yeah, really enjoyed that chat.
Thanks, so did I. Very
looking
good.
forward to seeing you play soon.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tackle Your Feelings podcast. To find out more info about the topics discussed and for tips on your own positive mental well-being, as well as information about and how to sign up to the Tackle Your Feelings Schools programme, please visit tackleyourfeelings.com.